Well, hello, welcome once again to Pale Blooms and Beyond. Thank you for joining us today. Geoff Levin is an American rock musician, film, TV composer, and songwriter. Geoff got his start in the music business playing in the Black Mountain Boys with future Grateful Dead member Jerry Garcia. In 1965, he formed his own band, People, and in 1968, they had a hit with a cover of the Zombies' I Love You. Incidentally, I just visited with the writer of the song, Chris White. See my interview of September 14th. In 1975, Geoff built a recording studio and began his career as a composer. During the 1980s, he was a member of musical storytelling group Celestial Navigations with actor Geoffrey Lewis. Mr. Levin has composed scores for over 50 full-length films, and his music can be found in many popular TV shows. In 2017, Geoff produced a new album with the Reunited People called The Return of People. And my guest just recently directed the full-length documentary Brothers Broken, a personal story of brothers caught up in a cult. Well, welcome, Geoff.
Hello.
Thank you for joining me today. And I feel almost talked out, but we're going to talk some more.
Oh, yeah, we could probably talk for another hour.
Right.
About recording.
Right.
About recording.
Well, take us back to the beginning. Where were you born?
I was born in San Francisco, the Bay Area, at St. Mary's Hospital, and lived in San Francisco for maybe, I don't know, a year and a half. And then we moved to San Jose, and that's where I spent most of my years as a kid and teenager.
Okay.
And yeah.
Do you recall early on hearing music in the household?
Not early on.
Okay.
Early on, to me, it's like 3.5, 4 years old.
Okay. I can't remember that far back.
I do.
Oh, do you? Okay.
What I remember, I don't think my parents had a record player. They were too expensive or whatever, but we did have a radio. And so when I say hearing music, I was very moved by the music in the radio plays that I would listen to.
What were those?
Like Upalong Cassidy.
Oh, okay.
That's the one that really sticks out for me. But there are other ones too. And radio was big and radio plays were big, and this was before TV. And then, boom, my parents got a TV about this big. The screen was
yes, really, really small.
We had a TV, and all of a sudden, oh my God, I could watch serials because they had to put something on there. So they got some of the old serials from the 30s and put them on TV. And so Flash Gordon is the first thing I remember.
Oh, okay.
And the music for Flash Gordon was classical music, basically.
Yeah.
Orchestral music. So I was being influenced by that music.
Early on.
I mean, think about it.
Those cliffhangers. Yeah. Right. Well, you had we're a generation at least apart or more. You had Hopalong Cassidy. I had the Lone Ranger.
Well, I had the Lone Ranger too, and that was a big deal. That was, and I watched every episode.
Yeah.
But I was older than you probably.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting around the world and in the UK, they love the Westerns too. And they would go to the matinee on Saturdays and watch some of those, like the Lone Ranger and things like that. And kids growing up, wanting to get the belt with the guns and play cowboys and Indians. Yeah.
I was 5, 4.5, maybe 4.5. And I had my cap guns.
Yeah.
and we had a neighbor that was the same age, and we would play. And what I do remember is I think I was threatened or whatever and used the gun to hit the neighbor kid. While that mother went ballistic.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the end of my relationship with the mother.
Okay.
But I remember, that was a big deal for me to have my chaps and cap gun and my holsters and stuff like that, and my cap. In fact, I
Oh,
have a photo, I think, of me in my cowboy hat.
okay. Wow. Yes, those are some fond memories for sure. Well, what was the first musical instrument that you learned to play? Do you remember that?
It was, I didn't, I a lot of kids had advantages to me. My parents were not musical.
Okay.
We had one musical person in the family. He played all the standards on piano, and he had a piano in his basement, rec room basement, and I didn't like the music at all.
Okay.
And that's when I was little, and he just insisted on playing it, so we just became inured to hearing it. But it didn't resonate with me. I was always moved by music, but there was no encouragement whatsoever
From your parents, or yeah.
from my parents. But then the folk era started up, 61, 62.
Yeah.
And I, my parents had a record player. I became influenced by when I was, I think we moved to Lodi. It's in the documentary, but we moved to Lodi when I was 5.5, I think. Came back when I was 8 or 8.5. And when we came back, I think that they got a record player, and they started buying albums,
Okay.
right? And then I started going to movies and seeing musicals. And that was really had a huge impact on me. But still, no one paid any attention to me in terms of, hey, do you want to play a musical instrument? And there wasn't really, I wasn't interested in band. There was kind of a band. So I didn't start playing guitar till 16.
Okay. Okay.
And it was a little funky, I think, Japanese nylon string guitar that they got from my brother, and he just didn't follow through on it. And I was into sports and into the academics, and I was listening a lot to music. So the folk music was there, and then I realized, oh my God, I could play these songs.
Yeah.
And so my cousin, who did play good guitar, and I was really intrigued by his playing, he sat down with me and showed me a Jewish folk song, and that was it.
Then you were hooked.
Oh, it was like immediate.
Did you happen to see my interview with Carolyn Hester? Do you know who Carolyn Hester is?
Kind of.
Okay, she was in that Greenwich Village scene. You're speaking of, the folk boom up in New York.
Right. Yeah.
She actually helped get Bob Dylan. She tells a story. Bob Dylan, really his first break, where he played a harmonica on one of her albums before he was, did any of his own stuff.
Yeah.
She
For
told
me, it was the Bay Area.
Yeah. Okay.
And
Yeah.
there was a folk scene there going on, and I tapped into it when I was 17. In my senior year, I started meeting people in San Jose because there was a folk club that was started in San Jose.
Okay. Wow.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to ask you, did you do any busking?
Not then. I did.
Okay. Nothing. Okay. Okay.
Oh, but I did make my first $2 bill, or no, my first dollar, because we went out to eat at some fast food place or pizza place, and I brought my guitar, and I wasn't trying to make money, but somebody was playing, and somebody said, "Hey, that's really cool, kid. Here's $1." So I bet $1.
Dude, you should have that up on the wall there somewhere.
I did have it up on the wall.
Oh, you did? Okay. Okay.
I still, I've kept everything almost.
Okay. Okay.
All the papers kept. It's been good though in terms of doing research and coming up with. Let me see if I have it.
Okay.
I'll be right. I'm right. Just looking for. Okay. There's no date on this, but
Oh, look at that. Look at that. The top of the tangent. And the Black Mountain Boys. Yeah, look at that.
this is my recording, which we when they did the retrospective, the double album for the Dead, which has done well. I think we're able to pull one track from this, but this is a whole set, several sets. And so there was, the folk community was Palo Alto, Berkeley, and then San Jose State, San Jose.
Okay. Wow.
And so I had people that I looked up to because I was the kid.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned some of the musicians in that scene. Who were some of them?
Well, the offstage, which you could do a whole documentary on the offstage. I saw some of the most amazing people there, and this was a little funky club on, I think, First Street in San Jose. I'm not sure, one of those, or Main Street, something like that. So I was introduced certainly to Jerry Garcia.
Yeah.
And his guys, that were the bluegrass guys, a guy named Sandy Rothman, Scott Hambley. But then these other people started rolling in from San Francisco or the Bay Area. There was Paul Kantner.
Yep. Right.
From who then became Jefferson Airplane.
Yeah.
And then I never really paid attention to her, but Janis Joplin was hanging around there all the time.
Yeah.
Her band, though, the Alban Brothers.
Yeah.
They had their own band, and I loved that band. They were crazy. So I watched them, hung out with them. So I was around these musicians before they morphed into major rock acts.
Yes.
And then we had earlier, I see you have lots of albums, but there was a guy named Jesse Fuller.
Okay.
Black artist. He was a one-man band. He had kick drum, hi-hat, played guitar, played harmonica. So he literally was a one-man.
One man.
He wrote San Francisco Bay Blues, which became very popular.
Yeah.
Look that song up. It was so.
Right, it is. Well, you meet these artists, at their genesis, but like you said, before they became big in other bands and that. What was Jerry Garcia like, back then?
People like me, I was the kid.
Yeah.
I didn't pay much attention, but I did play with them because they needed a bass player, and I realized some really good guitar players way better than me. That's not going to work. But there are no bass players, hardly at all.
Okay.
Don't pick up the bass really fast.
And
I worked at a place called Benner Music and bought a bass, stand-up bass from him. And so I had a little Opel, like foreign car. There was a little station wagon, so I could fit my bass into it.
Okay.
So then I got to start playing with some better players than me. But Garcia was aloof and highly critical. If you weren't good, then you just weren't even in the group.
Okay.
You weren't acknowledged. And so he was kind of like the guru, the Bay Area guru.
Okay. Well, he didn't have all that hair back then, did he? All that.
Well, if you see the picture that there's one in the documentary, but I think there might be pictures on my website. But everybody had short hair.
Yeah.
Everybody was clean shaven, short hair, and And so that didn't last very long, because as soon as the big thing was when Dylan plugged in, I think at the, what was the name of the folk festival that he plugged in at?
Yeah, yeah. Was it the cigarette label? Was it the?
No,
No, it wasn't that one. What was?
but I can look it up. Anyway, when he plugged in, it was back east.
Yeah, Newport. It's not the Newport.
It might have been the Newport.
I was thinking, don't they make a cigarette, or didn't they make a
Yeah,
cigarette?
no, that's right. It's a Newport Folk Festival.
Okay, I was thinking, yeah.
And he plugged in, freaked everybody out.
Yeah.
All pissed off. But everybody else was paying attention, the musicians.
Yeah.
And there was a blues singer, famous folk blues singer by the name of Barbara Dane.
Okay.
And she came into the club, and I'd seen her before, and she plays guitar, but just an acoustic guitar. She got up on stage, and she had an electric guitar.
Okay.
And she said, when I plug this in, everyone, all you musicians, your life's going to change. Because she was paying attention.
Uh-huh.
So at that point, the exodus from folk music was really fast.
Okay.
I mean, it was just like, and the things that changed that, the Beatles and the English invasion was what
it changed it. Yeah.
And it changed it really rapidly.
Right. Well, prior to People, you were in the Piney Creek Ramblers with your brother Robbie.
Yeah, and Peter Grant.
Okay.
He's up in the Bay Area, accomplished musician. He started out playing banjo, and he morphed into pedal steel.
Okay.
And slide.
Yeah.
Then he got, and I think that's because Jerry started playing pedal steel.
Okay. I've always liked the sound of that pedal steel and the slide guitar. I don't think it's used enough, in music, even rock, even other forms of music, I think it could be used in, not just country.
Well, I love it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, I have an old, I think it's a Korean guitar. Let me.
Okay.
But that's some of the first music I heard, because Black artists were people that influenced me. I love the blues.
Oh yeah.
So that and there was very little prejudice where I grew up. Just didn't exist.
Oh yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. And you'd be surprised, all these UK musicians that were heavily influenced by blues, American blues, and
Oh yeah, John Mayall.
Oh yeah, exactly. Exactly.
The Blues Breakers, all of those people.
Yeah.
And the Stones too. We had a guy named Paul Sussman. He is a kind of a stoned out guy, but he could sing and played the blues, and was really into the blues, traditional. Played really good harmonica. He had 1 million harmonicas, right, like stacked. And one day we were over at the offstage, and we were all hanging out because that was the place you hung out. And he said, "You have to come over and hear this group." And I was, at the time, I think he lived near San Jose State, right near the campus. And I was a student at San Jose State. So I went over to his house. I really distinctly remember, dark apartment. He puts this record on, and it's Red Rooster,
Oh, okay. Okay.
Rolling Stones.
Uh-huh.
And he says, these guys are whoa. But the pollination, I don't think I haven't seen all the documentaries on that transition, but it could be a series, the whole transition of the folk scene and how those musicians transitioned into the rock scene. And it's pretty indigenous to the Bay Area.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not really, it happened a little bit in other places, but not really, because you got the iconic bands that were on the West Coast. And
Right.
and the big ones, Creedence Clearwater, a little bit later, a tiny bit later, but Creedence Clearwater, Janis Joplin, The Dead,
Yeah.
Airplane, Quicksilver Messenger Service.
I was going to say Quicksilver. Yes.
Yeah, and Paul Freiberg
Yes.
was a
Yes.
folk musician, and he was one of the members of Quicksilver.
Yeah.
But there are other ones too. That Dan Hicks and the Hot Licks.
Oh, all right.
But
Yeah. Yeah.
this was all, and then you had a few LA, you had the Byrds.
Mm-hmm. Very influential. Yeah.
And then the Doors.
Right.
They were down south.
Right.
There was kind of a hybrid. It was still the West Coast.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know if anybody's really talked about it. I unfortunately, Paul's passed away. Jerry's passed away. Grace Slick is still around, which is cool.
Yes.
But I also knew Moby Grape, another one.
Another one, right? Yeah.
I was good friends with Skip Spence, the drummer, but he had taken acid.
I was going to say he
was unstable, but what a
talent!
Brilliant talent.
Yes,
amazing talent, and I was enthralled. But we were friends. He was about maybe a teeny bit older, and when I heard his singing and his songs, because I wasn't a good songwriter. It took me a lot of years before I wrote an actual real song.
Right. Oh, Bob Weir is still around. Is he like one of the last of the Grateful Dead? Isn't he?
Yeah, he is. He is.
I think so.
I think he was my age.
Okay. Well, we'll talk about the formation of People. How that all came together.
People came together. It was my brainchild. I had been playing professional bluegrass in a second band called the Pine Valley Boys. Really, that's with David Nelson, who then did New Riders of the Purple Sage later.
Okay.
But David and I was on bass, and Herb Peterson, who moved down south, amazing tenor. Boy, did we have good vocals. And then Butch Waller on mandolin. He's up north, I think in Oregon. But that was the band. And then Richard Green on fiddle. If you've never heard Richard Green, wow, was he hot. What a great fiddle player he was. And so I was playing professionally, and we were getting gigs. But the rock invasion was starting to happen. So I'm not sure what it was, but I just realized that I wanted to do rock and roll. Yeah. And so I had my brother and my brother's neighbors. So we had a drummer, young drummer. These are kids in a high school. I'm out of high school, but they're still in high school. My brother, Robbie Levin, Al Rabisi, who played accordion, he transitioned. We got him. Well, I was the adult. We bought him a Vox organ, I think. That was the first thing we got him.
Okay.
That was one of the. And then John Riolo, who was a drummer. And we had the lead singer was a folk singer, David Anderson, who I was friends with. And he was kind of a little bit my mentor. He's a little older than me. Really down to earth guy, really good guy. So and he wanted to perform too. So it was an opportunity that we saw, okay, we can put this band together. We were directed and more interested in the folk rock scene. So we were doing more of the folk rock kind of music, which was that everybody else was doing English and we were doing folk rock. So it gave us our own niche.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's how it started. How it really took off was because to get through college, I needed to make money. I was teaching guitar. And I was teaching downtown next to San Jose State at Moyer Music. That's the name of the music store. You can look it up and in these historical San Jose things that you can find it. And they did a promotion with KLIV, which was a pop radio station.
Yeah. Yeah.
And guitar was this was starting to be a financial boon for music stores. They only used to teach band instrument there. Right. All of a sudden, guitars are just hot, and everybody buying. The retail stores are stocking up on guitars, acoustic guitars already because of the folk thing, and now electrics.
Right.
So I was starting to teach, and the program director and top DJ at KLIV, Michael Hunter, they did a promotion where he was going to get guitar lessons. They were paying for ads on the radio, but the part of the cross promotion was that he was going to take lessons from somebody.
Right.
So guess who got to be his teacher?
You did.
I did. I gotta say, life is full of opportunities.
Right.
You just have to be willing to take them or see them.
Right.
And he liked me. I was still kind of shy and but I was down to earth, and he was like a mentor to me, an older. And so we were talking. He said, well, "What do you do?" And I said, "Well, I have a band." And he said, "Oh, okay." Sight unseen, he started to support us.
Really? Okay.
And I think he got us into. I'm not sure, but we were in a battle of the bands. We won second place.
Okay.
Which was pretty good. I think because we were unique, not because we were one of the best bands, but we were unique. And so, but he still hadn't seen us. And then he finally came to see a gig that we did. And the next time we got together, it was like a bit traumatic for me. He said, "You have to get rid of the lead singer."
Oh, really? Really?
Yep, that was it.
Yeah. Okay.
You want me to handle you? You gotta, because he was going to manage this.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I knew what he was talking about.
Yeah.
Because we were very limited. David was a folk singer, limited, more of a lyric baritone. So he couldn't do a lot of the cover stuff that we needed to be able to do and things like that.
Right.
So it was tough.
It was your job to tell him.
It was my job, and I had never been a leader of anything.
Yeah. Wow.
Much less fire somebody.
Right. That'd be hard.
So I was having to grow up pretty quickly.
Yeah.
In certain ways. And that's when we found Gene and Larry, Gene Mason and Larry Norman.
Yeah. And
that was through somehow Gene connected up with me. And, but I was putting it out on the ether or whatever you did.
Yeah.
Boards, I think, and music. We're looking for a lead singer, and Gene contacted me. I met with Gene and liked him. And this is, Larry Norman has his own huge following, or he certainly did. It's still a big following.
Yeah, yeah.
And so some of the stories that have been written are just false.
Yeah.
And it's not just me. Other guys in the band, including Gene, verify the truth of what went down. But Larry was living in Gene's garage. And Gene said, "Do you want to hear? I've been working with this guy. You want to hear us together?" He brought me into the garage and they did a number. And I said, "When do you start?"
Right.
When can you start?
Yeah.
It was that quick. I just had I saw the potential there with both of them.
Right. Right.
And so that became the band, and it would have carried on longer. I think Larry was destined to go elsewhere.
Right. Right.
It would have carried on longer, and we might have had more hit records.
Yeah. Well, who was the Zombies fan? Was that you?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I was the leader and MD of the group.
Yeah. Yeah.
MD being music director.
Yeah.
And I was always searching for material that hadn't been covered, so we could do things that nobody knew that could be recorded, because we knew that we wanted to do an album.
Yeah.
And I wasn't a good writer. And Larry was a good writer, but I didn't realize that he was very good. So I didn't know. And he was very closed in. We didn't know. He kept to himself.
Okay.
And he did do some writing. It could have, if I had been more proactive and more confident, I think we could have gone further. But again, I didn't have any skills or understanding of songwriting and nobody to teach me.
Okay.
And they didn't have courses in those days, you know?
Right, right. Well, when I talked to Chris, I said, I thought "I Love You" should have been a hit. You know, with you, with the Zombies too. You know, it's up there with, you know, she's not there, and you know, Time of the Season. It's up there, but yeah, but
well,
you got
when I heard it, it was a fan had brought it to our attention.
Mhm.
And I said, we should do this.
Yeah.
And I combined that with an intro, which is an original introduction, which didn't belong there. It wasn't there. And that's because we're influenced by a New York band. Geez, I can't remember the name of them. They did all covers, but we saw them at the Avalon. And their vocals were crazy, how good their vocals were. And they did a version of "Keep Me Hanging On."
Oh,
Do you remember?
Vanilla Fudge?
Vanilla Fudge.
Yeah.
We went to see yeah, great.
Yeah.
We went to see Vanilla Fudge, and we were like on the floor. Literally, we're on the floor, right? Because there were no seats. But literally, we're like, whoa, do one song, and then they'd open with another song and do this crazy vocal arrangement. And so the arrangement idea came from the Vanilla Fudge.
Okay.
Of the long version of the single.
Yeah.
And we weren't quite as good as singers as they were, but we pulled it off.
Yeah. It's a good version. It's a good version. It is. I like your version of it.
Well, I like our version too. It's really, we didn't have a good record producer. And I didn't know much about I didn't know anything about record producing at the time. Yeah. And Mike was our producer, but we really needed a real record producer.
Yeah. Yeah.
And somebody who could mix it. Because it's funky, but now it's okay that it's funky, because it's accepted that these kind of things, they have a certain sound that there's no way you can replicate it.
Right.
It's possible to replicate. I don't care. AI is never going to replicate it.
No, it's not.
And no group of studio musicians going back into a studio with tube amps and tube mixers and stuff, they still can't replicate it.
No.
There's just no way, that time and the vibe and everything. So I look back at the material that I disliked
Yeah.
And there's a song in there that I used to dislike, and I even disliked it when we first put it into the documentary, Brothers Broken.
Yeah.
And the more I heard it, I didn't write it. My brother wrote it, I think, with Larry. I didn't like it, and I told my brother, "Oh, I don't like that song, but it's going in there."
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I think it's a really unique. It's
Yeah.
called 1,000 Years BC.
Okay. I know. I know which one you're talking about. Yes.
Yeah, it's a really unique song. It's really cool. My brother contributed some really cool bass ideas that gave it the sound.
Yeah.
And so I listened to the album now, and I think early on when I was first bringing the band back together, and some critic or music guy or something, might have been a musician, he said, "That's the worst record I ever heard as a hit record. I love you."
Uh-huh.
And I responded back, and I just said, "Here was the scene."
Right.
And
Right.
ultimately, it isn't the worst record. It's really a unique, kind of super quirky song.
Yeah.
Chris White was crazy to write it.
Yeah. Right.
You know, and it was just so unique. And I am using AI now in terms of as a tool,
Uh-huh.
and I use it as a writing tool sometime. And I've explored and looked at the problem with any of that stuff is going to be that it will never supplant the complexity of a human being and the spiritual energy of a human being. Can't do it.
No. No.
It
Absolutely not.
it can sound really good,
Right. Right.
like the studio musicians.
Right.
And I think I put some stuff in there where I wanted it to not to be more 60s, and it captures it. The way I'm doing it is I will take things that I input into it, and I do my own. I don't want their lyrics. I have my own. I've just become like a tidal wave of lyrics. I can't stop.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's the human, in you, like you said.
Well, it was trapped
Yeah.
for about 50 years when I was connected in the cult, and I could occasionally write a lyric that was real,
Yeah.
because emotionally I was connected a tiny bit, but that was bad for you to have any kind of emotion.
Well, I want to have time to talk about that. When did you first hear of L. Ron, Scientology, and how were you drawn into it?
I was proselytized in 1963 by David Nelson, and a member of he was kind of a member of Scientology. You can believe it. And by the way, Phil Lesh was a Scientologist in the Dead.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, he was very active for a while.
Okay.
And David Nelson was active, and a guy named Rick Melrose, who was into the Palo Alto scene and friends with David Nelson. And so I was over there, and at that time I was smoking pot with them. They turned me on to pot. So I think it might have been the first time they turned me on to pot, and they thought, "Oh, now he's suggestible. Let's hit him with the Scientology shit." I'm stoned, and they're telling me about this amazing new philosophy that's going to allow you to be a super spiritual being and live forever, and that we are beings that are reincarnated. And so we didn't gather all our power that we have. We have so much power that is latent, and Scientology releases that power and allows you to be immortal, in the sense of when you move on, you remember your past lives. So you remember living after you die, you'll remember what you did. So they gave me the name, a word for what they call a spiritual being. And that word was based on the Greek letter theta, which is, everyone knows, not everyone, but a lot of people who read know the Greek letters and how they were important to naming things and stuff like that. So, and Hubbard just put an N on it to make it a noun, thetan.
Thetan, okay.
And that was the term that he used. I did not forget that. And I didn't get involved for 5 years. I just got way busy teaching, having the band. That was enough. There's no time for any kind of spiritual or religious stuff. So, and then the band was really moving, and Albert Ribisi, the keyboardist, came in one day and said he saw a bumper sticker that said, "Ask me about Scientology." And it triggered that.
Okay.
And at the time, I had embraced the philosophy, so in a way, I was just ready. And I said, where is it? And he said, there's a mission in Santa Clara, which is outside of San Jose proper. So I went down there with my brother. Nobody else knew anything about it except me. And there is a story in the documentary that is told about what Albert said, because I didn't remember that, but the drummer remembered.
Okay.
We went down there. They give you, at the time they had a lecturer who would give you an introduction lecture. And I was like, immediately, sign me up. That was it.
Yeah.
Just sign me up.
Yeah.
And then being the leader, the other guys followed.
Okay.
But the lead singers did not follow, because they were both Christian and they were both practicing Christians, and that was, this other stuff was not resonating with them.
Okay.
And
yeah,
that,
especially Larry. Yeah.
Yeah, especially Larry.
Yeah.
Anyway, I didn't know that Larry was that devout. I didn't know it.
Yeah.
It just came off as him being kind of a diva and hypochondriac and difficult to work with, stuff like that at the time. Well, we could live with that, except we learned right away in Scientology that those kind of people are super dangerous, and they have labels for everyone.
Oh, yeah.
Much worse. I mean, at the time, psychiatry had labels too, and some of them were pretty bad. Scientologists were worse because it's not founded on real facts.
Yeah.
So that's broke the band up.
Yeah.
Because we kicked Larry out.
Yeah. Yeah.
He was labeled and then basically ostracized.
Yeah.
It was unfair to do that to him.
Right. From what I've heard too, there was a demonization too of anybody not in the cult, anybody outside.
Well, there's an elitism.
Yeah, elitism. Yeah,
it's not quite demonization, but all of a sudden, people like Michael Hunter was late. I was coming out of any kind of drug stuff. I was just getting bored with it anyway. And then I hit Scientology, which was anti-drug. That's good. But Michael was starting to smoke pot. And so all of a sudden now I'm joining a group where I'm looking down on him.
Yeah.
This is the guy who took me under his wing, who basically was, in a way, a surrogate dad, that we really had a good relationship. He was getting a little bit out of his league in terms of his skill as a manager. But regardless, there's no excuse. When we said we're firing Larry, he said, you do that and I'm gone. So we lost our manager, we lost Larry, and we had to go out on tour opening for big acts. because the record was doing really well. And we basically sabotaged our own record.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because we couldn't perform it the way we used to.
Right.
Without Larry, forget it.
Right.
So it was very traumatic for me. And I probably could deal with it some more in therapy, but it was very traumatic. That tour, which could have been really fun, great learning experience, turned out to be, for me, horrible.
Right.
So,
yeah. Yeah.
So to me, I don't think there's no other music groups that had been so negatively affected by that cult that I know of.
Right. Right. Yeah. Was that the tour that you were with the Who?
Mhm.
Okay. Okay.
And they were my idols. So
Right. Right.
ideally, it should have been, just the most exciting summer that I would ever have. And I couldn't appreciate it.
Right. Right. Were people around you not involved trying to get to you or dissuade you from doing that at all at that time? And you wouldn't listen.
I just wouldn't listen.
Yeah.
No, my parents didn't have any sway over me because I wasn't disassociated from my parents, but I didn't listen to them. We never had a great relationship. So, and my mother was also labeled. I labeled her too.
Okay.
So I was turned into a complete asshole.
Okay.
I mean, a stupid, uninformed, brainwashed jerk. And I paid for it, that's for sure. I mean, I went down the tubes pretty quick, except I thought I was going out the top.
Right.
And
And that was what, 30 years of your life?
No.
No.
Technically, it was 46.
46. Okay.
And then you have to add in another. I got out at the end of 11, but I didn't officially get out until the end of 17.
17. Okay.
So I was under the radar. I still had family. My kids were in, my ex-wife was in, a lot of my friends were in. It took me a long time just to start to get back on my feet to where I knew that I would be able to state, I'm out of this.
Right.
And so it was 2017 when an issue came up with my son, who wanted to do some major Scientology therapy, which costs money, and it's not cheap. And he knew that I was somewhat disaffected.
Yeah.
So at that point, it became a confrontation. I just said, no, I'm not coming in. They want me to come into to one of their churches.
Right. Right.
Celebrities in LA. And it's called Celebrity Center. And I just said, you want to talk to me? Happy to meet you anywhere, but I'm not coming in there.
Yeah.
Because what they would do is, in a way, they might just bar the door, get some of their security guards, and just keep you there.
Yeah. Yeah. There have definitely been horror stories about that happening. Things and worse.
Yeah. And anyway, that was it. It was a relief, though, for me to go.
Well, did you have anybody helping you in the deprogramming stage?
I had a friend who had got out and helped me early on, who was a music friend. So yeah, he was helping me a lot. He had been in the cult too, and he was very smart. But the deprogramming, I was doing my own deprogramming, and then I did get with a therapist. Originally, my brother and I were going to do a book right before any thought of a movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say the universe stepped in. The guy who was going to do the book, we weren't ready, and he wasn't helping us.
All right.
But the real thing is we weren't ready. And if I'd known more about being prepped for what you need to do with the book,
Yeah.
it would have been a lot different.
Okay.
And what happened though is then it morphed into a documentary, which is to me way better.
Yeah, I'm excited to watch that. I'm excited. I wanted to ask you about celestial navigations. Was that any way connected um, with Scientology or not?
Yes.
Okay. It sounds like it.
Oh, have you heard some of this stuff?
Just the name itself, I would say, yeah, that's kind of
Yeah, well, that was the way that came about. The person who named us was not a Scientologist.
okay.
But that's a whole story in itself. Celestial navigations.
That's interesting.
And the bottom line is, if I hadn't joined Scientology, it would have never happened.
Okay, got you.
And I got to say, it's my all-time favorite group to perform.
Ah, all right, all right.
So Celestial in itself is a whole amazing little kind of group with its own following.
Yeah, yeah.
We had some diehard fans, I got to tell you. We still have fans.
Yeah.
And I have one more album that I'm going to do for
Oh, okay. Was for Celestial. Okay.
Yeah.
How many so far? How many so far?
8.
Okay, 8.
1 live album and 7 studio albums.
Okay.
But the last one is a studio album, and I'm experimenting. We'll see if it works with doing a clone of Geoffrey the actor's voice.
Oh, okay.
See if it could be done realistically enough.
Yeah.
To take some of the material that he never was able to record, and see if it works.
If it works, yeah. When was it he passed away?
2015.
2015. Okay. And I was trying to think, what is his daughter's name? The actress.
Juliet.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
I couldn't.
Yes. That's right.
He never got famous as her. He should have been, but he was in Scientology. So
right. Okay.
And he would have been. I think he would have been. It's so limiting for creative people.
Right.
And when people say, well, yeah, but what about Tom Cruise? Well, I can give you a whole point of view on that particular.
Yeah. Is John Travolta still in?
He's still in. It's kind of, he probably won't leave. I wish he would. Really talented, sweet guy.
Yeah.
But he had issues when he was in. They never took care of him. And Scientology is homophobic.
Yes.
Completely. Unless you're a big celebrity, then they kind of look the other way.
Right. It's funny how that happens.
Yeah, and it's happened with a few celebrities that are still in, but they're leading a lifestyle that's completely forbidden for the rest of the members.
Right, for everyone else. Yeah.
So, but I think John's super talented, really nice guy, and I would love to see him leave.
Yeah.
And just be able to, whatever issues he has, which to me are not gender issues, they're issues of whatever personality issues he had or meant, that he could get that so that his career could then be revitalized.
Yeah.
Because he hasn't made good career choices for a while.
Right.
So, because I follow those people. And I know the business, the film business, and I know the difference between making money with your film and creating a film that people respect the art of it or the message of the film.
Right. Exactly. Good point. Do you have time to go into that a little bit? What's your schedule? What is it looking like? It's
Um,
12:30.
yeah, I can do 5 more minutes.
Okay.
Then we
Okay.
should, if you want to pick it up.
Okay. We'll pick it up again. Let's see.
When there's no time limit, so you and I can gab a little bit more. And
Okay. All right.
yeah,
If you're sure. Okay.
no, fine on doing more. I think, and especially right now, the film, I finally got insurance for the film, because
Right.
the technical aspects of getting this film out are just, it's a whole learning curve. Anyway, so we're going to finally start promoting or selling the film or get it out on pay-per-view or something so people can start seeing it.
Yeah.
Well, I think the whole cult thing is very timely.
Yeah.
Although people may not connect it.
Yeah.
Some people will.
Yeah.
And
Right.
if you have family members, it's how do you deal with family members? That's, where you see the obvious.
Yeah.
And they don't.
And they don't. And
Good. Okay. Yeah.
well, thanks for sending me that Two Frauds Don't Make a Right. Very humorous and also true. Very true.
Yeah. I mean, the song was developed because of a contest on Facebook where I had a flash looking at J.D. Vance.
Yeah.
What I didn't see him. What I saw is a Lego version of him. Because I was going, okay, this guy, you couldn't be any stiffer than this guy was. And so I decided, well, let's see what happens if I talk to my AI art program and see what it popped up almost identical. And then I started, well, what would Trump look like as a Lego man?
Uh-huh.
And then it escalated from there. I put the two together because this is just when Vance, just after he had been selected as vice president. And then I thought, well, let's see what my Facebook friends might give me as a caption for this.
Right. Yes.
And then Gary said, Two Frauds Don't Make a Right. And I was like, you got it.
That's perfect.
I got other captions, but that was it. And then I just started working on the lyrics.
Yeah.
And that's what I came up with. And then I don't have a great editing system, but I made a music video out of it. And it pretty much tells the tale, my opinion. And there are guest appearances by Putin
Yeah.
and what's his name?
The North Korean. What's his name?
Oh,
What is his name?
Kim Young-jung.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
And then from, is it Hungary?
Yeah.
The other guy.
Yeah.
It gets appearances by various people, including Elon Musk, I think.
Yes, he's in there. He is in there.
Yeah. So they all get to join in with a wonderful song.
Yeah. The lyrics are clever. They really are. And I'd like to see that develop into maybe somebody behind the Lego movie franchise.
Well, Lego, it's totally illegal what I did. In terms of, they could ask to do a takedown anytime because, the Legos are a copyright. I think they're still
Yeah.
trademarked product.
Yeah.
So I have no idea what the people at Lego believe, but I would think that the attitude, because they're so kid oriented, might be very positive towards a more progressive point of view towards mothers.
Yes.
Yes. there's not on that side, there's not a very empathetic attitude towards motherhood,
Oh, there
or
isn't.
the trying path that a woman takes when she decides she wants to be a mother, or doesn't decide, but it just happens. And it's actually horrifying to see what's going on for me.
It is for millions of people, and women in particular. Yes. Yeah.
And we talked about this, I think, when I left the cult that I was in,
Yeah.
I was very scared. I was, and any cult is when it's a real cult, it's founded not on love, but on fear.
Fear. Yeah. Yep.
And that's the foundation. That's how they keep people where they are. And the techniques are slightly different from group to group, but it's basically fear.
Yeah.
And when I got out, and then I connected with my now spouse, she started pounding on me in terms of her point of view, and then I started connecting with some very spiritual teachers. And the simplicity of it is, in my opinion, underneath fear is actually a morbid fear of death.
Right.
Under
Yeah.
any fear.
Yeah.
And that's why when you look at some of these spiritual teachers and spiritual guides, they can see things in a perspective that's very calm. They can usually observe a situation and give you an accurate idea of how to deal with it. It's not based on fear, it's based on compassion, it's based on understanding. And so for me, the last 4 days, to answer your question, uh, it's aggravating a tiny bit, but I've been, my friends and people, I've been spreading the idea that no, don't be afraid, because that's what the corporate, much of the mainstream press is, it's doing it's creating that fear on purpose.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's actually disgusting to see that some of these, not all of them, some of these journalists, reporters, pundits are going along with it.
Yeah.
Even though they know better.
Even though they know better, they know the truth. They know. Yeah.
And they know, and what they see and what they know is basically how many people stay to watch the World Series if it's the second inning and one team has already got 10 runs.
Yes. Yes.
How much of a game is that? How exciting when we watch the Super Bowl or something like that. People start tuning out when there's no game.
Right.
So that's all based on just ratings and clicks and maintaining that, because there really is. I mean, Europe looks, because we have friends in England and in various other countries. They look at this and they go, what are you guys doing?
Yeah.
This is so obvious.
I know. You hear that from other countries. You're right.
So it's unfortunate. I chose, and I've written several songs. I don't know if I can find it, but I wrote a song on the media.
Yeah.
And I think I might be able to find it here. But I chose to be creative. That's
Yeah.
why I wrote the song Two Frauds Don't Make a Right. That, okay, I'm going to channel, be political as a songwriter and as a musician.
Yeah.
And on my Facebook, most of the people that are friends that I know or kind of know that are musicians, they're all on the same page. I got to say that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And one thing that that I'm going to say to your audience, all you have to do is look statistically at how many creative people, I mean, are supportive of
Yeah.
conservative, don't change anything, repressive kind of a political point of view.
Right.
It's
Right.
so, it does not promote creativity.
No.
The result, conservatives, I don't know hardly any conservative people who are music artists.
Right. Right.
They're scared of them
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
progressives, by nature, a music artist is progressive if he's serious about his own work.
Yes. Yes.
He's not, and he or she usually they're rooted in history, so they understand history to some degree.
Yeah.
Because the masters go back how many centuries?
Centuries. Yes.
What kept me, the only thing that really kept me grounded when I look back on it is when I would do my music.
Okay. Okay.
And all of a sudden I was in a space where there was no stress.
Yes.
Because if cult and fear go together, which they do, in essence, you're trying to keep your members in stress 24/7. Then you can control them, and then they come into the cult, and there's mechanisms the cult uses to allow them to reduce their stress if you do this or if you do that, or if you come to our big gala concert or something like that. And for an hour, they're fine, 2 hours. But it's still all you're stressful all the time. And there's a difference between momentary stress, where you have a deadline or something like that in your work, or you have to get something done, and where there's this underlying stressful condition. And it started quite a while ago. I mean, in our country, you could say 4 or 5 decades ago.
Yeah.
There's a good book, and it's upstairs, unfortunately, but by Tom Hartman. I don't know if you know who he is. He's a radio personality who been around for years, really smart researcher. And he has a new book about democracy.
Okay.
And it's spelled Thom, Hartman. But brilliant. And he accurately says, okay, through these decades, this was happening for America. And then here's a point where all of a sudden we saw a new era that was going in a different direction. And that was in the 80s. Right. We saw a whole different type of legislation and a whole different mindset. It's when trickle-down economics came in. Yes. So anyway, that people need to do their homework, and there are good writers.
Right.
I was talking to my friend who was I could say my first mentor, because I was 17 or 18 when I met him. And he was a little bit older. I mean, not that much older, but 2 or 3 years makes a big difference.
At that age, it
At that
does.
age. And we were talking about the Bay Area because I'm from the Bay Area. We grew up in San Jose. He was a good friend to Jerry Garcia. And he and Garcia hung out a lot. And he brought up a point about the uniqueness of the music scene in the Bay Area.
Mm-hmm.
The Bay Area is a very unusual vibe in terms of California, because you got two big areas. You got the Bay Area and you got Los Angeles. And then everything else is kind of small potatoes. Not to diminish the other cities, but I'm just saying they don't have like this cultural center. And the Bay Area was a cultural center. LA was a cultural center in a different way, more cinematically, more film, more TV. Every one of us in the Bay Area, what we were more motivated by was, I mean, I was a mix, but I know Jerry, from what Pete said and what I got, Garcia was all about, did he think, oh, I'm going to be a big icon, a super, like one of the most famous musicians in the world that people across the planet, idolize for what he did? All he cared about, because Pete was telling me when he talked to, he had to tamp down the issue for him of being a superstar, because what he cared about was the music, playing the music. That's it. He loved, that was his thing, to play the music. And that's why till he died, he was performing nonstop.
Right. He had to keep his ego in check.
Well, he did, to a degree. I know he had an ego because I was around him too, and he had this kind of guru image, because everybody went to him. All the other musicians would ask, opinions, and what do you think, Jerry, and blah blah blah. Right? He had, except when it got down to it, it was just about the music, and you could get into his kind of good graces or group if he thought your music was relevant, or if you thought you were sincere about what you were doing. So he was about the music. That was it. You go to other areas of the country, and it was about people wanting to have hit records. Period. We want hit records. We want hit records. You look at other bands that were making music, and yeah, they had to deal with that a little. But one of my favorite bands of the '60s is Who. They were, and Pete Townsend was the driving force creatively.
Oh yes,
because he was the writer. That guy was politically astute. He was a progressive, from what I can see. And what he said, he wrote the anthem of the '60s, My Generation. Still an incredible song.
Yeah.
So we used to do it. My band used to do it because we were a cover band for quite a while, and that was one of my favorite songs. I love the Who. So we're this mentality is the opposite of the corporate mentality. How much profit? The materialist. What did Garcia care about? Well, he cared about that when he did a concert, he had a good enough sound system, if you want to call that materialism, but it's a very fundamental kind of conflict that's gone on. And I was going back to Mozart, who was a genius. No doubt about it. And here's something that's interesting, and I think very rich patrons. Why do they become a patron to the arts? Because if they didn't, they'd be forgotten when they die.
Yeah.
20 years later, nobody
Yeah.
would give a flying who they are.
Right.
Supporting the arts sometimes, if you look at the movie Amadeus,
Right.
well, I think it's Prince Philip, maybe, who was his patron, one of his patrons. We still remember that. We wouldn't remember that guy if he hadn't been connected to Mozart.
No.
Mozart's music is still being played. Does anybody sing the songs of Prince Philip?
No.
They actually do, I think, just because he was an amateur composer.
Yeah.
Connected, but if he hadn't been connected to Mozart, nobody even know what he did.
Right. Exactly.
So the patron, and because my spouse is an artist, a fine artist, she's now looking at several installation projects she wants to do. You have to have a patron for that. Part of that, though, is an installation like she wants could be there for the next 200 years because it's big and it's an amazing idea that she has. So she's going to they're going to have a gallery or a patrons in gallery. Those people will do it because they realize their name will be on that. In 20 years, somebody will look at, supported by
right.
Gloria Smith or whatever.
Yeah. Endowment.
The endowment, yeah. So
yeah.
What lasts in the universe, I think, in my opinion, there's two things: art and friendships.
Yes. Right.
Those two things can last through eternity almost. And so that looking at any group that is going to empower a materialist that doesn't see the value in anything but surviving through their amassing wealth is dangerous. In my opinion, it's super dangerous to an artist unless they're really good patrons. You can look at some of the patrons that we think of, like Getty or
J. Paul Getty.
Yeah, he did some pretty nasty things with oil and stuff like that. So, and there are they donated to the arts, but I think they did it when they realized, my wealth doesn't mean anything.
Right.
Ultimately.
Like you said, hundreds of years later, there's millionaires that will not be remembered. They're not going to be remembered.
Yeah, and these billionaires are not going to be remembered either.
No.
I mean,
no.
Interesting thing, Woody Guthrie, the folk songwriter of the 30s, wrote this song about Fred Trump. Do you know that?
No, I didn't. No, I sure didn't.
Look it up.
Okay.
Wrote a song because of Trump's exploitation as a landlord.
Yes.
He wasn't, and he basically dissed Fred Trump for what he was doing in a song.
Woody Guthrie. I'll have to look that up.
And so, I mean,
yeah,
that's his legacy.
Yes.
I mean, not a good one.
Not a good one. You know what? Another thing, to be said about music and art versus the immediate gratification of what the Trumpers, in the MAGA world is talking about, the spiritual versus the temporal. you know. I mean, that's where, I mean, you got to draw the line, and that's where music is spiritual and it's
Oh,
timeless. Whereas
absolutely.
they're only thinking about right now, right today,
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, and
Yeah, no, I agree. It's and I think when you talk the people, I think the millionaires or billionaires, and there are some who actually have transcended that ego in that
yeah,
idea that they're the elite because they have this power.
right,
Uh, do so because they realize a bigger connection
right, yeah,
and they're more spiritual, not necessarily connected to a organized religion, but connected to a spiritual point of view of religion that doesn't require that you attend to anything. Or,
church or any
yeah, but
organized meeting.
or-
Yes, right, right, right.
so and what I could say, because a lot of people have said I'm freaked out or I fear, I'm feeling that all the time. I say, take a look behind that and look at what some of these really well um, researched articles. Don't be afraid because this is going to change. And we're and one thing, for instance, the alignment of the planets, the astrologers, two other times where this happened, this alignment.
Yeah,
First time was during the American Revolution, 1776, around that time period. The second time was the Civil War.
yeah,
And the third time is now.
is now. Yeah,
It takes, here's the thing, it takes effort and time and being willing to be wrong about what you think
yeah,
in order to really understand what's going on around you.
right, right.
That takes work. If you're just going to believe, and the other thing that I mean, it's going to be a moot point, I think, to some degree, is asking someone, do you read? Do you read articles about stuff? Do you look for articles written by various different people on either side? Or do you just listen or watch people
Mhm.
giving their opinions?
Yeah,
And if they say, yeah, I do read, you've got someone who maybe you can talk to that
right.
might listen to what you have to say, or will, if you recommend somebody like me recommending Tom Hartman, they'll go, I'll
Yeah,
check it out.
I'll check
And
that out.
they'll read something that he wrote, or they'll buy his book, or so it's partially the propaganda started to change when radio came in, because all of a sudden now a dictator could reach his whole public
Yep, yep,
in like 10 minutes, could deliver a message
yeah,
of propaganda that would have taken probably 2 weeks to 2 months to get to his public if it was printed in a newspaper
you're right.
or a magazine. So more than any, so now uh, we can't be lazy.
No, no.
But of course, I don't know any musicians that are lazy.
And you're certainly not. And
No,
and
I'm just
another
talking
one.
about
No.
that we all have to,
Yeah.
if we're, whether we're amateur or professional, we want to keep playing. We want to improve so we can play with more people or do better when we
Right.
play.
Yeah.
So there's a certain work ethic. You have to apply that to being a citizen.
Yes.
There's
See.
work ethic that is there to be an informed citizen. If you're going to be a sheeple, then don't do anything. Just pick who you want to listen to and follow, and follow them.
Yeah.
What
And
the end was, go ahead.
only watch Fox News. Yeah. If you only do that, yeah. I mean, it's the brainwashing that goes on. Yeah.
Well, I saw it firsthand with my some in-laws. You know, they put when we come over to their house, because they have the TV on all the time, they put it to a cooking channel. But guess where it is when we're not at Fox News?
Yeah.
And so I used to, not anymore, but I used to talk to the brother-in-law, and he was extremely conservative and got all his information from one place. And then I would challenge him. That's all I say. Well, have you read this? Have you know, what is your, show me where it says that somebody said that. Show me the full text of what was done. So, and they can't do it.
No.
So
they don't care about facts. They don't care about.
Well, it's not caring. The word cognitive dissonance, which basically is you are holding on to a belief system, a foundational belief system, which does not allow you to challenge that anything that happens in front of you that you observe in any way that would challenge that belief system is filtered.
Yeah.
Is interpreted a certain way. And certainly when you're in a cult and trying to get somebody out of a cult, they have a serious condition of that. If you challenge the foundation of their belief system and how they live, that's scary as hell. They're going to reject you.
Yes, they will.
You know, so that's what when you look at that, it becomes simpler. And then on our side, or not our side, but on the side of those who are just trying to enlighten people or to do the right thing, you don't hate those people because you understand them. And in my case, I really can't hate anybody because, you know, I used to live in the glass house. So I'm going to, you know, put down somebody or be really nasty to them when I was in the same position at one point.
Right.
So
that's a big thing that we lack here in America is empathy. We really lack that, you know.
Well, there is a lack in certain groups. The problem is we also don't get to see in the news the great wealth of empathy that I know is there, that happens every day, and we don't see the good news.
They don't. That's not big news to talk about that, though.
No, it isn't, and that's part of the conditioning.
It's not controversial. We got to have controversy, you know.
If you go back though to what the news was in, you know, the turn of the century or even in the 30s, local newspapers, which have been basically destroyed by the big conglomerates, bought up or just evaporated, they always printed the local good news that was happening. You'd have the local heroes, the local people who did good deeds.
Yes.
And that would inspire people. If you inspire people, you can do it, but people are so conditioned to click on things that are causing fear or horror. And again, that's over a period of time. They now ignore because probably in their lives, there isn't enough joy. They have they've had failures in the area. So joy just reminds them of their failures.
That's good. I like that. Yes, it does. Yeah, it does.
And when, if you can look at those people and say, well, okay, maybe the next time you're not going to fail. How can I help you?
Mhm.
What could I do to
Right.
help you move forward with whatever your dream is?
To just reach out to the other side, as they say,
Yeah,
You know?
or whoever.
Right.
And it's not even a side anymore. It's just like they had a dream and it was squashed. I mean, look at, Hitler's a perfect example. If some mentor, gallery, or painter had taken him under their wing and said, well, I see what you want to do. And okay, you have some talent, but I'm going to teach you so that you can take that and do what you want to do with it.
If they had nurtured him in that direction, you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Maybe
Well,
another dictator would have come up, but not him. So, and so it's actually, scary, but not in a super fearful way, and exhilarating to not know what's going to happen next exactly, but to know you're ready for it, that you can understand it because you learned how to make those identifications, how to do the research, how to make decisions about things that are informed. And at that point, I mean, for us artists, we're doing that all the time, right? We're constantly evaluating. Oh, wow, what was that? You hear something new musically, and it's
mhm.
still possible. It's amazing, but there's still new things, new sounds.
Yeah.
And each individual who wants to express himself musically is going to have an identifiable sound. I mean, even when they try to copy exactly, but it's not going.
Yeah. Right. Right.
They're still going to sound like them.
Yeah.
I create a lot of things, and I discard a lot of things
Yeah. Yeah.
that I go, no, it's not me. Doesn't sound right to me.
Yeah.
And okay, what can I do to get more what I want to hear?
Right. Right.
And that takes work again, research.
Yeah.
So I'd say most musicians could be good researchers.
Yeah.
They just have to apply that to their whole life, not just to their music.
Right. Don't compartmentalize like that. Yeah. Apply it to
So, you want a good relationship? Well,
yeah.
do research on what do you have to be, what do you have to be a good partner?
Yes.
Not what do they have to be.
Not right.
No, that's what usually happens is, well, this is what I want, and then everything will be great.
Yeah.
Well, what about what that person wants?
Right.
Are you thinking, well, this is what I am going to be, and that's going to be great for them?
Right. See.
I'm going to be a really good partner.
Right.
And when I met my spouse, I met her after I had that epiphany. I realized I'm not looking anymore.
Mhm.
I need to, I need to get on myself, figure out what about me could be better as an attractive partner. I think a month later, I got it because I was on Match.com. I got a text or whatever you get from them, asking to be a friend or to connect. So I didn't even find her; she found me
Yeah.
because my attitude changed.
Right. And apply that on a global scale or on into other levels. What can I do to be a better citizen? What can I
There you
do
go.
to be
Exactly.
a better friend? Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
great
Yeah.
question in itself, and I think other people have said it. I don't know. I haven't heard it lately.
Yeah.
What could I do to be a better citizen? What
Yeah.
could I do?
Yes.
And it's not anybody ordering you to do it. You be a better citizen. You do this. You do this.
Right.
No, when you really can own that and go, yeah, I want a good government. I want a good environment. Well, great. Okay. So that girlfriend has to change to be what you want.
Yeah.
Well, how about you change
Right.
to be a better citizen, which would make the government be more effective,
Right.
go in the direction you want it to go.
Right. It starts with each one of us individually. It really does.
If you look at music, it's
Uh,
searching, you're constantly searching for what is the truth for you and what is a more fundamental truth.
right. Right.
That then, if it's correct, things will change.
Yeah.
Because our point of view is it's all about change.
Yeah.
If you meet someone who's young and they're not changing,
Yeah.
and they don't want to change and they're sad, they're not young, their body might be young. You meet somebody who's 90 years old and they're still, questioning, researching, and a lot of music people are like that.
Mm-hmm.
They keep, oh my God, they're still performing, they're still
That's right.
doing music, they're like turned on to the latest
Right.
young recording artist.
Yeah.
And they're going, wow, that's cool. I'm going to do something like that for me.
They're still growing. I mean,
Yeah.
life is constantly growing,
Well, yeah, the simplicity is
Mhm.
if you look, either it's continuing to grow
Mhm.
or it's dying.
You're right. You're going
There
into
is, there's no in between where something stays exactly in the middle. It doesn't happen. That's why by nature you say, well, I'm a conservative. They want no change.
yeah, that's right.
And that just means, okay, you're dwindling.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you don't want to grow, you don't want to, because nothing stays the same. That is something that's provable.
Nothing stagnant. Nothing stagnant.
Yes. It's
and
either going towards dissolution
Mhm.
or it's growing.
Mhm.
Oh, there's a group that I'm hoping I'm pretty sure I'm going to be accepted into the group because I got, it's a nonprofit, and I applied for it because I heard the guy speak. He's an expert on AI. He's a techie,
Mhm.
but also a music guy. I'll send you
Yeah, send me that
the
information.
website because you
Yeah,
could apply for it.
okay.
It's the only AI music or AI group where everything that AI is trained on is cleared.
Oh, okay.
There's no scraping
Yeah.
of which is basically taking copyrighted material and feeding it into AI. He's not doing that. He's creating a system where there's no scraping. He clears it with the creators first. That's the way it's going to go.
Yeah, I hope so. I really do.
Well, no, we're going to keep, California's already, Newsom's already going in that direction.
Okay.
And we have to go in that direction because it's just the latest. Remember, what about MP3s and Napster?
Mhm. Mhm.
All illegal shit.
Yeah.
And then it got, then Apple came along. Steve Jobs gave a new solution that actually benefited everybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it kind of dissed Napster and finally just killed it pretty much.
Well, I wish they would kill streaming. I wish they would kill that.
Well, what they need to do is create a more fair platform. Like Spotify is fucked up.
Yeah.
And they know, and that I think the CEO has been pretty open about being fucked up. I mean, he doesn't think it's fucked up. He just, but being pretty unfair.
Yeah.
So, um, eventually, if you allow in our country, there's enough sane politicians, enough sane lobbyists and groups that they get the right thing done.
Yeah.
It's just slow, and that's
Yeah.
that's all. But that's been the case with every new technology. It's been, look how long it takes for that to get legislated and to create a fairer environment. So the streaming thing is still an issue. If I had the money, I and hadn't been screwed by that company,
Yeah.
which I thought Unified Manufacturing in LA, never go to them. They took my money and didn't give me anything when I asked to get a vinyl disc, because we know the experience of vinyl is still the most amazing. And I think somebody I know who I'm looking at is
Can you
an
tell?
example of that. Vinyl, there's just no doubt, no matter how you record it, whether you record it digitally or whatever, as soon as it goes to vinyl,
Right.
you just upgraded the sound.
Right.
There's a sound of the mechanical record and the way it translates to your speakers and everything that you can't do any other way.
Yeah.
Just can't do it. So eventually I think I will be able to get a vinyl of my band.
I hope so. I really do.
Yeah, no, it's just money.
It's
the only thing stopping it right now, because I'm investing in my movie. Oh, by the way, side note, I'm deciding on which distributor is going to take my documentary. Now I've got 3. It's great. My agent got me 3 different distributors to choose from. So that film will be out pretty soon, and I'm going to do a side short film, a spin-off on, my experiences with folk music and then going into the band.
Oh, well, good. Excellent.
Yeah, so I'm going to probably do several shorts that go along with the full-length documentary. So because there's so many subjects. So I did one short, I think I mentioned, for my brother on his experience of creating spinning as a health and exercise regimen. And he was the one who developed it.
Okay.
Someone else took credit for it, but he developed it.
Okay.
So we did a story. It was an expose short film, because that's horrible when someone takes your idea and then they claim they did it.
Right.
That's, it's like a songwriter stealing another song and then saying he wrote it.
That's right. It's the same thing.
It's horrible. So anyway, yeah, a lot of exciting things, I think. And did we cover everything that we need to?
I think so. It's been extremely enjoyable, Geoff, doing this, and I'm glad we had a part 2 because
yeah, no, me too. No,
it's been inspiring. It's been spiritual. It's been invigorating. It's been a lot of things. It's got me thinking.
Good.
So,
Good.
yeah.
No, well, that's what and I encourage creators to create.
Right.
And the more we have, and that's the amazing thing about art is it inspires more art.
Right.
It inspires people to be closer to whatever your religious belief is, no matter what. It brings you closer to whatever the source of the energy is, whether you call it God or universal consciousness or whatever. When people are creating, they are connected. And I think that's healthy, right?
It is very healthy. And that's why I'm glad we made this connection.
Yeah, me
Because
too.
I want to, that's what I want to do, is share your stories and connect with more like-minded and spiritually minded people out there. So,
Well, I think it ultimately, almost every musician I've met, they come to similar kind of like ideas and belief systems,
yeah,
they own it from their experience.
right.
Well, thank you.
Amen. Amen to that. All right, Geoff. All the best, and stay in touch. I will be in touch.
Oh, I'll be in touch too, because once I get a distributor, the film will finally be out for the public to see.
Okay. Yeah.
So that might be a little short interview.
Oh, okay. That would be good too. That would be
Yeah.
good. All right, Geoff.
Well, thank you.
All right. You have a good rest of the weekend, okay?
You too.
All right. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.